I'll put a ticket in, see what happens.
Maybe there's a good filter you can use.
That's it. Filter.
I thought that was kind of the
Perfect.
He doesn't have to,
Oh, yeah. Floor's hot.
just for a minute.
It's
Did you like run down the hall or something?
What's that?
I said, did you run down the hall or something?
Nah,
Well,
it
there is.
happens all by itself.
Today is my 31st anniversary, so we're up to be 100%. After 30, there's a gap to 50. Like, you want to think that's kind of,
This is
just, it's not that. Else you get to
they were
50.
gonna send that to.
Oh, cool, yeah. Yeah. Stephanie, are you sponsored by anyone? Is that a sponsorship? You're putting the drink in front of the camera there?
Product placement.
You should hold out for 10%.
Batesville Nutrition,
That's it.
my daily lunch.
NIL.
NIL,
Yep.
Stephanie Davidson.
Yep.
We'd have the Morel Company in Batesville Casket. We could start having sponsorships of board meetings online.
There we go.
Are they still open? Like where they were?
Batesville Nutrition? Yeah, by Maurice's.
Okay, I just didn't see the store.
I probably spend too much time there throughout the week. Miss it on the weekends. But like when you're busy during the day, I mean, it's a great fill you up.
Sure.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think
It's probably better than my diet due with protein bar.
yes, most definitely. You know, I haven't drank pop in like 8 years.
I try to get away from it. It just keeps calling my name. It keeps calling my name.
Maybe make it 8 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
8 minutes.
8 days. I'll mark on my calendar.
Yeah, it's probably been like 8, 9 years.
That's good.
Yeah. All right, is everybody ready? Call this meeting to order. Stand up and do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Ketchum, we'll turn it over to you to do our BCSC vision.
Thank you, Madam President. Welcome, members of the board. We begin every meeting with our portrait of our graduate vision. And that is, together with our community, BCSC is committed to providing an engaging and relevant learning environment based on a strong foundation of academic knowledge, transferable skills, and real-world experiences. Batesville Bulldogs embody confidence, empathy, and resiliency to ensure 21st century success. So with that, Madam President, we'll roll right into our agenda. The first item for your consideration are the minutes, and there's a plethora of minutes there for obvious reasons. So I'll seek a motion to approve those minutes as presented, Madam President.
Does anyone have any questions about the minutes from last month? Can I seek a motion to approve?
I'll make such motion.
Thank you, Larry. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sean. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam President. We'll continue down our agenda. The next item for your consideration are the payroll journals and register of claims. You do have an additional 5 pages of claims in a packet there, so I'll give you a moment to look through those. As I said earlier before the meeting, you'll see a lot of $18.50 reimbursements. Those are employees being reimbursed for doing the online portion of CPR. They'll actually do the physical checkoff with Director of School Health, School Wellness, Carly Weiler. But we have received a couple local grants to cover the cost for employees to become certified in CPR annually. Mr. Nobby, is there anything else in that packet this board should be aware of?
No.
Happy to answer any questions. When you're ready, seek a motion to approve those as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the payroll journal and register of claims.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sean. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Madam President, we'll continue on our agenda. The next item for your consideration is the list of personnel. Ms. Cole, is there any changes on the list of personnel since it was distributed to the board?
No.
So I'll give you a moment to look over it. Happy to answer any questions you have. Seek a motion to approve that list as presented.
Any questions? Can I seek a motion to approve the payroll or
I'll make that
personnel?
motion.
Thank you, Sean.
I'll
Do I have a second? Thank you, Jeremy. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam President. We'll continue on our agenda. The next item for your consideration are the travel requests. There are 4 travel requests there. Ball State Counselor Connection, IASP Fall Professional Conference, admin system event for Ms. Hooten, and then the Unite meeting, also the state reporting, both Power School related. Seek a motion to approve those as presented, Madam President.
Does anyone have any questions on the travel?
No,
Can I seek
I'll make a
a
motion to approve travel as presented.
Thank you, Larry. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeremy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam President. Next item for your consideration are the administrators, directors, and other salaries. You have that information in front of you. Just a point of privilege for me. I just want to express my gratitude for our administrative team for the amazing job they do. Very well deserved raises if you approve these. They are representative of the percent increase to both the teachers and classified staff. I'll seek a motion to approve those as presented, and obviously, Mr. Timoneri, you probably need to abstain from that.
That was it, yeah.
Are these the stipends?
Those are not, those are the salaries
Okay.
for the administrative directors, Mr. Merkel.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. I'll make the motion to approve the adjustment for the administrator director and their salaries.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sean. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And Laura, I will abstain.
Yes, I got it.
Thank you, Madam President.
And Paul, I'll just add, thank you for moving quickly through that process. I know it's always kind of a sequence of events when we get through certified, classified, and usually the administrators and those last. So thanks for bringing that all to conclusion here before the new year.
Absolutely happy to do that, Mr. Raver, and a big credit to Mr. Tim here, because just helping to see, he takes care of so many things behind the scenes, so thank you, Tim. We'll transition. Speaking of that, Mr. Hunter's portion of this board is the financial report. Mr. Hunter?
All right, the financial report for the end of November is on the screen. Go through this quickly. Starting off with the education fund, we started with $2.2 million. We had revenue of a little over $1.5 million versus expenditures of just over $1.4 million. So that balance climbed by $113,000 to finish at $2,319,697. That is a high water mark. We actually hit over 2.3 million one other time in 2024, but just barely. This is actually the highest balance we've had in the education fund. The debt service fund, we started with a little over $1.4 million. We received property tax in November from Franklin County. So that fall property tax draw, we have no expenditures in November. So the balance climbed considerably to $2.16 million. The operations fund started with a little over $3.4 million. Also, the Franklin County property tax draw boosted the revenue for that fund to almost $1 million for the month of November. Expenditures totaled $564,000. So the balance actually climbed over $400,000 to finish at over $3.8 million. No activity in the rainy day fund. So the total across all funds, we had $8,302,911 across those 4 tax supported funds. That also is a high water mark. So Mr. Ketchum's last board meeting officially, and he gets to go out and on top here.
Hey, Tim, one question on the education fund. You made a note of that being kind of a high watermark. I assume December will be a little higher than normal with retroactive pay and things like that going out,
So December,
right?
we have this first payroll of December, the certified retroactive, which obviously the the raises that were
Yeah.
granted is substantial. So the balance will drop going into year end. And then also, the big thing that will change is debt service payments. So we have a little over $2 million in debt service payments that are made in the month of December.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about it in just a second, property tax collection. So December, we've received Ripley County property tax draws, but because of expenditures, the year-end balances will drop.
January also is a 3-pay month, so there'll be an extra payroll in January.
Yeah, so the education fund balance was just over 13%, which is, which sets us up well for going into a couple of
Heavier.
bigger
Yeah.
than usual expenditure months.
And I remember, Mr. Avery, my first year, 2017, we touched $500,000 a couple times for a cash balance education fund. That was after the ROD payment, all those other payments. So again, credit to this team for being good stewards of taxpayer money.
Yep.
Tim, you want to continue?
This is a new addition. Since we closed out all of our construction projects and kind of started them back up. But we have two listings. So we have the 2024 general obligation bonds that we sold a little over a year ago. If you remember that, the net proceeds were a little under $1.9 million. If you recall, the general obligation bonds have the most flexibility in our expenditures. And so we've spent a little over $1 million to date. So we have $870,000 of that original proceeds left. But you can see on that far right column, the actual balance of $936,000 and change. When that money was deposited and Mr. Nabi has it invested, so we've earned $70,000 in revenue so far on that money as it's paid down. And we've sort of held on at, once we sold the bonds this fall, the 2025 first mortgage bonds on that top line, the net proceeds of not quite $6.5 million. We started paying the biggest expenditures out of the 2025 bonds have been for the roof project going on at the high school and middle school. So we paid over $500,000 last month, but we're just starting to spend any money from that bond issue. So we paid less than $750,000 to date. So about $5.7 million left. And you can see we've earned just a little bit of money on that $5.7 million invested. But if that balance didn't get spent down, it would be a couple $100,000 in revenue from the interest between what BNY Mellon, who is the trustee of those funds, and also Mr. Nabi manages some of those funds in-house. But we will continue to report on this. And I know as we talk more about projects in 2026 and prioritize some different things and get the board subcommittee reestablished and get a new superintendent brought on board, and we'll be looking at putting some of those dollars to use.
Perfect.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
the 2024 GEO bonds, what were you using that for?
That was used, and if you recall, when we issued those, the general obligation bonds, they give us a lot of flexibility, and we could spend it on projects throughout the district. We could spend it on equipment, school buses. The legal expenditure of those funds is pretty flexible. And so one of the things that we had talked about was trying to preserve some flexibility with the upcoming changes with property tax reform, and seeing what may happen down the road if we receive less property tax revenue. But the expenditures that we already have range from a few capital improvements that were sort of left over after we completed the site improvements here. Like an example would be the tennis shelter that wasn't included in the big project, but it was something that we wanted to make sure we had. So some things like that. We had some additional with the Success Center, some of the renovations down there. We were required to do some mechanical work and some things that were beyond the scope of what the Education Foundation was able to raise. And we wanted to make sure that the funds that they raised went toward the furnishings and to create the space that they were, trying to accomplish there. So we invested some of that there. We did painting and improvements over the summer. So kind of a miscellaneous capital improvements, along with we also did some computer devices for staff devices that were paid, or
Well, we paid for staff and student devices,
So-
the lease payments for the last.
so
12
substantial
months.
amount of technology equipment in the building, which is what that's for, which is one of the reasons that we're in as good a shape as we are with our operations and education fund right now.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Hunter? We'll continue on. Tim, you want to talk about property tax collections?
Yes, so Franklin County property taxes we reported last month. They were received in November, but Ripley County we received earlier this month. We received a total from Ripley County of $1.5 million between debt service and operations funds, which in total was a little over 100% from Ripley County. That offset, we were about 98.5% that we received from Franklin County. So altogether, we came up about $43,000 less than what we expected to collect. So about 99.5% of what was expected. Over the past 5 years, 2020 through 2024, we averaged collecting right at 101%. So, and usually when we had a year that we were under 100%, we would shoot back up over 100% the following year. So hopefully that may be the case in 2026.
Do you expect Franklin County to make up their deficit?
I would think so. The biggest reason that they wouldn't distribute money would be if they didn't collect it, if people were late. So that should flow back in.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Tim, you'll continue. 1782 notice?
Yeah, the budget update, and we included the initial 1782, just one page on the appropriations. We received the 1782 notice and returned it. We have not gotten the revised copy, but our budget, I'm happy to report, was approved as advertised. The amounts, $18.3 million for the education fund, $7.75 million for the operations fund, the rainy day fund, $8,978, the remaining balance there. Our debt service budget was reduced. We had an advertised budget of $4,668,769. When we sold the bonds, we based that on the estimates and planning that that the interest rates that we might sell the bonds at, we couldn't be overly optimistic. So when that actually occurred, those debt service payments were reduced, and the actual budget amount for debt service is $4,582,769. Our tax rate for 2025 was a little under 91 cents, 90 cents and change. We don't have our tax rate after we responded to the 1782 notice, but believe it will be 91 cents and change, about a penny increase, less than 92 cents, which I know we've talked about earlier this year with some of the property tax reform. In years ahead, it may change as far as trying to manage our tax rate. Tax rates may go up while property tax bills continue to decline for property taxpayers as the property tax reform is instituted. But for this year, we are about within a penny of the 2025 tax rate.
I'll summarize that, Mr. Anderson. So what will happen is we've been focused on the tax rate. You'll start to focus on the tax levy, the amount collected in lieu of the tax rate. The tax rate may increase. Property tax owners will still pay less because of the deduction of credits. So this school, the transition will occur what taxes are levied, what are collected versus the tax rate itself. Any questions for Mr. Hunter on that? Tim, you want to talk about transfer resolution?
Yeah, this is an annual housekeeping item, basically giving Mr. Nabi authority to make transfers between major budget categories at year end to keep them in balance. Usually, and actually this year, we're not as tight against our appropriation ceiling, so probably less of a need for any adjustments, but it's typically something we do at the December meeting. And he would report back in January with any changes.
Todd, before I ask the board for approval, what's maybe a scenario that you would leverage that authority?
Under state law, you're not allowed to run any appropriation into the red. So it's, like payroll, we budget everything, but if payroll goes over in one building and less in another building, it just brings everything to zeros. So it's really just a back end type thing. It's just to follow statute. Last audit, they've never complained about that as long as you're total, but under statute, you're not supposed to run any appropriation in the red.
So with that information, members of the board, I will seek a motion to approve the authority for Mr. Todd Nabi to have the year-end transfers.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Thank you, Larry. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sean. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam President. One more approval of a resolution. This is to transfer amounts from our education fund to our operations. Again, we're very lean. We only transfer about 4% into those funds. Tim, you want to lay a little more information for the board?
Yeah, that amount has not changed. We're allowed to transfer money from the state basic grant and the education fund that we receive to cover operations fund expenses. The state set a target of less than 15%. We've been less than 5%, and actually we're not increasing the amount for 2026. So $70,000 per month, $840,000 for the year is what we're planning on transferring.
I don't know the state average. I'd like to find that out, but I believe it's probably 10%, upwards of 10% about the amount that's transferred typically to districts. Some districts are at 15% or above. That's not really an infraction of the statute, but it is kind of put you on the list that you're transferring potentially too much from your education fund to your operations fund. So again, the landscape is we transfer very little money out of our education fund to operations, which is a sign that we are good stewards and we pay for what we can pay for. So with that, members of the board, I'll seek a motion to approve that resolution as presented.
I'll make a motion that we approve the transfer of funds from education to operations.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Colleen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam President. We transition to the next portion on our agenda, and that's patron comments.
At this time, we'll open up the floor for any comments. We just ask that if you speak, to not talk directly about a student or teacher or anybody that works at the school. No takers today? All right, moving forward.
All right, we'll transition to our first action item. You have before you, members of the board, a letter from our school attorney, Doug Wilson. 2013, the BCSC board entered an agreement with Ivy Tech Foundation about selling $1 million in bond revenue and investing that $1 million into the current Ivy Tech building. In doing so, the Ivy Tech's portion was they would create $1 million in scholarships to the foundation. The deed and the lease read that once that $1 million was exhausted, this school would deed back that 20% of the building that we owned. So this is kind of housekeeping. We're actually probably a couple of years past this. That $1 million in scholarship has been utilized a couple of years ago. But just for housekeeping reasons, we'll seek a motion to transfer that 20% back to the Ivy Tech Foundation. And we need a motion to do so, Madam President. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Paul, the only question I would have is obviously we've continued to look for ways to fund those credits. To your point, that $1 million ran out some time ago and we're continuing to fund that, which is incredible. Is there anything then like formally on the books with Ivy Tech that we need to think about in terms of what that relationship looks like, or?
That's a great question because it's an invaluable, essential relationship. We've had some informal conversations about them leveraging our facilities here, and we still have kind of negotiated a rate, a credit hour rate, but we'll continue. This group will be innovative in how we fund that because that is a heavy lift. 13 years ago, we thought $1 million would last a long time, and it didn't. And that's a good problem to have. We have so many students earning Ivy Tech credits. It's important for us to fund this. And again, our community should know this. The savings to our families is enormous about the investment we're utilizing to pay those credits. So we'll continue. The next superintendent will continue to prioritize funding this and have those negotiations. But that's a long answer to say we don't have anything formally right now, Mr. Raver.
Yeah.
But there's some conversations happening that maybe that can occur.
Got it. So if some of those extra things happen, we kind of document that or put that process in place. Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Can I seek a motion to approve the approval of the deed transfer?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Blaine.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeremy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam President. The next action item for your consideration is a local teaching license and a quick history lesson. In 2018, Batesville School Corporation was granted a legal authority by the Indiana General Assembly to locally licensed teachers with the caveat that it had to improve student outcomes. You have a recommendation for me to approve Ms. Joy Lake. Ms. Joy Lake is a retired Spanish teacher from Batesville High School. Her DOE license ran out in 2020, expired in 2020. She is retired. In order to administer the WIDA test is an acronym for English as their second language. You have to be a licensed teacher to administer that test. Ms. Lake has been gracious to volunteer to come do that, but she has to be licensed in order to do that. So we have the authority to grant her a local licensure so that she is eligible to administer that test for our students who will qualify for the WIDA test. So with that, Madam President, seeking a motion to approve that local licensure for Joy Lake so that she can administer the WIDA test.
Does anybody have any questions on that?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Larry. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sean. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam President. We'll wait 1 second. See what's for lunch? Maybe it's just a bell dismissing class. Next action item for your consideration is approval to increase reimbursement costs for bus driver CDL physicals to $125. You have a letter of recommendation from our transportation director, Mr. Greg Erman. That is basically to cover the cost of the CDL physical for our drivers. That's simply because the cost of doing business to get that is increased from $110 to $125. So seeking a motion to approve up to $125 of reimbursement for a CDL physical for our bus drivers.
Paul, just for my knowledge, is this something we've historically paid for?
We have, Mr. Timonero. Yes, great question. Bus drivers are so hard to find. We try to eliminate any barriers, and sometimes $125 is a barrier for some people. So we reimburse them for that physical.
So it's just an increase of $15 per physical.
Accurate.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I seek a motion to
Yes,
approve?
Stephanie, I'll make a motion to approve the increase in the reimbursement for CDL.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I have a second?
I'll make the second.
Thank you, Larry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam President. The next item for your consideration is we obviously are part of the Southeastern Indiana Career Center. There is an operating agreement that all schools are a part of. That operating agreement was updated recently. It's been approved by that board. That board is represented by the superintendents in the cooperative schools. The biggest language change was in order to add another school, it had to be unanimously approved. We worked through some processes where it wasn't always easy as it sounded it should be. So the language has now changed. 2/3 of the board members have to approve a school entering the Southeastern Career Center. This operating agreement really doesn't have a lot to do with our corporation other than if we're audited. I'm sure Todd would need this document and there's some kind of transfer of funds or whatever it is. This is basically how the Career Center does business. That's really the only substantial change that I want you to be aware of. This document's already been approved by the local board, but we do, for transparency, want this board to have their eyes on it. So I'll seek a motion to approve the new operating agreement for the Southeastern Indiana Career Center.
Somebody have any questions? Can I seek a motion to approve for the Career Center?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Sean. Do I have a second? Thank you, Jeremy. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam President. And that rolls into the next action item It's the adding of Madison Consolidated Schools as a member of the Southeastern Career Center. They were at one time a member, it withdrew. I'll just be blunt, created some hard feelings among other superintendents. So to bring them back, we had to change the governing body to bring them back. So that's why we changed the operating agreement. Now they're seeking to join, but in doing so, there's an expectation for them to pay $598,000 in buyback amount. That's the amount that basically why they were gone. They didn't pay into the operations to operate that institution. In addition, they will bring additional students and revenue to the Career Center. It's a good move to bring Madison back. But again, this board should be aware of the why. So I'll seek a motion, the resolution to add Madison Consolidated Schools back into the Career Center.
Paul, two quick questions there. One has there ever been much turnover with the Career Center? I mean, it's always been the same kind of group of schools that I'm familiar with. And then two, like when they left, like where would have they gone for that period of time?
So there typically has not been a large amount of turnover. I think in the last 20 years, Mr. Raver, maybe 2 schools have kind of come and gone and wanted to come back. And what they did was they thought that they could basically house those opportunities in their own district. And it turned out they couldn't afford the students all the opportunities that the Career Center affords those students. So superintendent change in that corporation, new superintendent wants to come back into the Career Center. So that's the why. And they will, it impacts Batesville because we have to pay per student, and if they're not meeting their bottom line. So by adding another school, there's additional revenue to ensure that we have lower cost.
Makes perfect sense to me. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to add Madison Consolidated back to the Career Center.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Sean. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam President. The next item for your consideration is the approval of property, casualty, and automobile insurance. It was kind of a late approval process, but Mr. Hunter has some information. Tim, do you want to share with the board the information on our renewal?
Yeah, the information wasn't available before the board packet went out, but we're looking at a 5% increase. We were around $260,000 for this year across all lines of insurance, and it's 272,000, I believe, for 2026. There, obviously, payrolls, the number of vehicles we operate, nothing is declining as far as the risks that we're insuring for. But the coverages, like I know the cyber liability coverage, our policy is increasing from $1 million limit to $2 million. So the different lines of insurance are being enhanced. So the insurance market, I think property is finally is declining. Liability, not necessarily as far as rates, but the overall package, we're looking at a 5% increase for 2026.
And if I may, just a history lesson for this board, the S-Craft is they basically, they get quotes almost on a menu, like they'll do automobile here, property casualty here, liability here. Used to be you had one broker gave you one price, that would be paid, and you really couldn't control your percent increase. So this trust is 80 schools, Tim?
Yeah, approximately 80 out of 300 districts.
Over the life of this arrangement, it's been a cost savings to Batesville schools. 5% increase doesn't sound great, but compared to the market and what other schools are facing, it's a reasonable increase. And it goes back to Mr. Merkel, your point, how do we continue to offset costs that come out of operations? Our property and casualty comes out of operations, so that impacts us. But Mr. Hunter does all that work, and I appreciate that. So we have a recommendation for this board to approve.
I will add one more thing. It's a group of 80 school districts, and they negotiate to get the rock bottom rates for the different coverages, but each school kind of comes in with their own experience. So if we are a better risk, we don't have to necessarily cover the neighboring district that is a higher risk. Each kind of gets priced up or down based on your own experience. So we benefit from the buying power, but we also can benefit from our own claims history.
Any other questions about the insurance? Can I seek a motion to approve the renewal of property, casualty, and automotive insurance?
I'll make that motion to approve.
Thank you, Larry. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Blaine. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe the last action item for your consideration is approval of an overnight field request for FFA, Ms. Cassie Wolpe. Date of request is for 12/4, National Western Stock Show. Well, obviously, we have some robust policies and procedures now for overnight field trips. Those have been followed, so I'll seek a motion to approve that overnight field trip as presented.
Any questions?
No, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Blaine. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Larry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam President. Under the superintendent's report, the first item is Neola 3138.1, first reading. Maybe the biggest, I shouldn't say the biggest, but something this board should have an internal conversation about is now there is, through Senate Enrolled Act 286, the ability for this board to discuss the compensation. And I know that will occur during the January reorganization meeting, but I simply wanted to make this board aware that that is an opportunity for the board. The statute now says the board stipend can be up to 10% of a starting salary for a first-year teacher. So that would be up to $4,500 stipend for this. Now, I'll say this publicly and privately, that's well-earned. That's a well-earned stipend. So I would ask this board to kind of reflect on that to see if they want to move forward with that. There were not any other, some other things, staff evaluation. You were aware from approving our staff evaluation, it is basically changed. Used to have 4 categories, highly effective. Now the only ask is you have to have a measurement, a metric to evaluate teachers. So that updates our policy 3220. Teacher appreciation grants are changed statutorily. Only up to 20% of teachers are eligible for that. So again, the old policies simply reflect the statute. So these aren't necessarily our decisions. Just make sure that our policies are aligned with statutes. So this will be considered the first reading, Madam President. Between now and next meeting, any questions, please feel free to ask, follow up with. The last thing, just an update. This board's aware we own 2 homes behind 5th Street, Tim?
Yeah.
5th Street right behind BIS. They are to the point of where they're going to cost the corporation money to maintain. Tim and I have had some robust discussions that the property they're on is more valuable than buildings. So we're going to move forward with the demolition of those homes as we look forward to expanding potential BIS property there. And just a note, Batesville Fire Department is going to leverage those buildings before they're torn down for some training facilities. So again, community connected. Simply wanted to make the board aware of that. And then obviously I wanted to take a moment and sincerely express my gratitude to this board, to this community, in this room for the opportunity to serve as a superintendent for 9 years. It's been a tremendous honor. It's afforded me the opportunity to work at the next level, and I'm going to be indebted and grateful for the opportunity from this board. Specifically, Mr. Raver, who hired me, was on the board that hired me 9 years ago. Where's 9 years gone, Mr. Raver? So I'd be remiss not to express my gratitude to this board for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
As a school board member, I want to express my gratitude and thanks to Mr. Ketchum for his leadership through the 7 years I've been on the board. I mean, they've been very, very transparent, no surprises, and we really appreciate what you have done for us, and we wish you the best at the state level.
Thank you, Mr. Merkel. Appreciate that.
Maybe we'll see some benefits from being in Indianapolis.
Let's hope so.
Yes.
Let's hope so.
Paul, as the board, we've come together to get you a little parting gift that hopefully every day that you use this, that you remember the great board and the great community that you've served over the years, and we appreciate everything that you've done for us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Paul, do you want to get a picture of the board right now?
I'd love to, Larry. Let's get a picture of the board right now. Should we adjourn first and take a picture?
Yes.
Let's adjourn first.
Yeah, we don't want to part of the meeting, right?
Meeting adjourned.
Now we get a picture.